My name is Megan. I'm 26 years old, and the day I sat in my childhood kitchen while my parents laughed at my dream of earning $50,000 on my own, that was the day I stopped asking for their permission. It was a Sunday afternoon in February. The rain was hitting the window in Austin, Texas. I had just finished my second freelance design project of the month. Nothing huge. A logo for a local bakery and a social media kit for a yoga studio. But together, they had brought me $1,200. That might not sound like a lot to some people, but for me, at 26, building my own graphic design business from my tiny one-bedroom apartment, it felt like proof that I was on the right track. I wanted to share the news with my parents. I still wanted their approval back then. I know that sounds naive, but when you grow up being told you're the creative one who will never make real money, part of you keeps hoping they'll wake up one day and see you differently. That day, I learned to stop hoping. I walked into their living room. My dad was reading the news on his tablet. My mom was scrolling through her phone. I said, "Hey, I just finished 2 more projects. I'm on track to hit $50,000 this year. Maybe even by summer." My mom didn't even look up. She said, "Megan, don't get ahead of yourself. You're 26. You need a real job with benefits and a 401k. This freelance thing is a hobby." My dad chuckled. Not a happy chuckle. The kind of chuckle that says, "You're embarrassing yourself." He said, $50,000? In this economy? Doing what? Drawing logos for people on Instagram? I'll believe it when I see it. I said, "I'll show you. I'm tracking everything." He put his tablet down and looked at me with something between pity and irritation. "Megan, you've never earned more than $18,000 in any year. Not in high school, not in college, not after. What makes you think you can suddenly earn $50,000? You don't have the discipline. You never did." My mom added, "We love you, but you need to be realistic. Your sister Sarah got her nursing degree. She has stability. You have Canva." That word, Canva, like it was an insult. Like my entire skill set could be reduced to a free online tool. I felt my face get hot, but I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just stood up, picked up my phone and said, "Okay, I'll show you. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me, have you ever been made to feel like your silence was the price of belonging? Drop a comment below." I read every single one. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. This channel is for anyone who's learned that sometimes the truth needs to be spoken out loud. I left their house that day and drove home in silence. No music, no podcasts, just the sound of the rain and my own heartbeat. I remember sitting in my car outside my apartment for 10 minutes, just staring at the dashboard. The numbers were spinning in my head. $18,000 a year was my best so far. That was true. I had worked part-time retail jobs through high school and college. After graduation, I spent 2 years bouncing between temp work and freelance gigs. But in the last 8 months, I had gotten serious. I had taken courses. I had learned sales. I had built a website. I had even started charging what I was worth, $75 an hour instead of $25. But my parents didn't see that. They saw the 22-year-old who dropped out of a business degree because she hated accounting. They saw the 19-year-old who worked at a coffee shop. They never saw the 26-year-old who woke up at 5 a.m. every day to pitch clients before anyone else was awake. That night, I opened my laptop and did something I had never done before. I created a spreadsheet, not for my taxes, not for my portfolio, a spreadsheet titled Proof. I listed every single client I had worked with in the last 12 months. I listed the dates, the amounts paid, and the bank transaction IDs. Then I calculated my total earnings for the previous year. It was $22,400, not $18,000. My parents had rounded down. They had minimized me without even checking. That was the first time I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not sadness, clarity. I realized that they weren't going to believe me because they didn't want to believe me. My success would force them to question their own choices. My dad's safe corporate job he complained about every night. My mom's part-time work she never loved. It was easier for them to call my dream a fantasy than to admit that maybe they had played it too safe. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg for their belief. I was going to document everything. Every invoice, every payment, every single dollar that entered my bank account. And on the day I hit $50,000, I would show them the proof. Not to gloat, to remind myself that I never needed their permission. The next morning, I woke up at 4:58 a.m. Before sunrise, before the world started making noise, I wrote down 3 goals for the next 147 days. Goal 1, earn $50,000 total from January 1st to the end of May. Goal 2, save 30% for taxes and emergency fund. Goal 3, do not ask my parents for anything, not advice, not money, not validation. I called it Operation Bank Statement. The first 30 days were brutal. I had 4 regular clients and a handful of small projects. In January, I earned $6,200. That sounds good, but I was working 60 hours a week. I was saying no to friends. I was eating ramen and frozen vegetables to save money. I stopped going out for coffee. I stopped buying new clothes. Every dollar I earned went into my business account or my savings. On day 34, I landed my biggest client yet, a small e-commerce brand that sold organic skincare. They needed a full rebrand, logo, packaging mock-ups, social media templates, and a pitch deck for investors. The contract was $8,500. I almost cried when I saw the signed agreement in my email. That single project would pay more than my entire first year out of college. But I didn't tell my parents. I wanted to. I picked up my phone 3 times. Each time I put it down. I knew what they would say. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Or, that's great, honey, but what about health insurance? Or the classic, let's see if they actually pay. So I stayed silent, and I worked. I redesigned their logo 17 times until it was perfect. I created 3 different packaging options. I wrote a 40-page brand guide. The client loved it. They paid the full amount within 10 days. That was February 12th. My bank account had $14,700 in total earnings since January 1st. On day 47, something unexpected happened. My sister Sarah called me, not to catch up, to warn me. She said, "Mom and Dad were talking about you last night at dinner. Dad said you're going to crash and burn. Mom said she's worried you're getting scammed by online clients." I felt that old familiar sting, the one I had felt 1,000 times growing up. But this time, it didn't hurt the same way. Instead, I opened my spreadsheet and typed in the numbers from the skincare brand payment. $8,500. I added it to the running total. Then I looked at the projection. If I kept up this pace, I would hit $50,000 by early May. Not by summer. By early May. Sarah asked me, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm better than okay. I'm counting." She didn't understand what I meant. But she would. They all would. The next 60 days were a blur of contracts, revisions, late nights, and early mornings. I worked on a Saturday in March that I will never forget. It was 2 a.m. I was finishing a brand identity for a real estate agent in Dallas. My eyes were burning. My back hurt from sitting in the same chair for 12 hours. But when I finished and sent the files, the agent sent me a voice message. She said, "Megan, this is incredible. You just saved my business. I'm sending you a $1,000 bonus right now. If you've ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you, drop a purple heart in the comments. You're not alone. We're building a community here of people who chose themselves. And if this story resonates with you, hit subscribe. More truth is coming." That bonus put my total earnings at $28,300. I was more than halfway there, and it was only March 17th. I had 78 days left until my self-imposed deadline. But the hardest part wasn't the work. The hardest part was the isolation. My parents stopped asking about my life altogether. At family dinners, they talked to Sarah about her hospital shifts and her new boyfriend. They asked me if I had applied anywhere real yet. I would say, "I'm doing fine," and they would nod like I had said nothing. One night in early April, my mom called me. She sounded sad. She said, "Megan, your father and I have been talking. We think you should move back home for a few months. You can save money and look for a full-time job. This freelancing thing, it's not stable. We're worried about you. I wanted to scream. I wanted to say, I've earned $34,000 in 3 months. I have more savings than you think. I'm building something. But I didn't. Because I had learned something crucial. People who want to misunderstand you will always find a reason. Instead, I said, thank you for caring. But I'm okay. I promise. She said, you always say that. Then she hung up. That phone call lasted 4 minutes and 22 seconds. I know because I checked. It was the shortest conversation I had ever had with my mother. And it was the moment I stopped needing her approval. On April 28th, I received an email from a client I had worked with 2 months earlier. She was launching a second business, a boutique fitness studio. She wanted me to design everything: logo, website, signage, merch, and a launch campaign. The budget was $12,000. I almost deleted the email thinking it was spam. It wasn't. I accepted the project that night. I worked on it for 22 days straight. No days off. No breaks longer than 30 minutes. I tracked every hour in a time log. By the time I finished, I had invoiced $12,000 plus $800 in extras. May 12th, day 147 from that Sunday in February. I woke up at 4:58 a.m. again. I made coffee. I opened my laptop. I opened my spreadsheet. And I added the final numbers. The fitness studio payment had cleared on May 10th. 2 smaller projects had paid on May 11th. I held my breath and looked at the total. May 12th, day 147. I held my breath and looked at the total. The spreadsheet read $51,840. I had done it. Not just $50,000, $51,840. In 147 days. While my parents said I couldn't. While they told me to move back home. While they called my work a hobby. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there, in my tiny apartment, at 5 a.m., staring at a number that proved everything I needed to know about myself. Then I did something I had been waiting 147 days to do. I exported my bank statement from January 1st to May 12th. Every single deposit, every client payment, every dollar amount with a date and a transaction ID. I highlighted the total balance at the bottom, $51,840. I saved it as a PDF. Then I printed 2 copies. That afternoon, I drove to my parents' house. I didn't call first. I didn't text. I just showed up. My dad opened the door. He looked surprised. Megan, is everything okay? I said, everything is perfect. Can I come in? My mom was in the kitchen. She was chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked up and smiled the way you smile at a child who has done something mildly impressive, like tying their shoes. Hi, honey. We were just talking about you. I said, I know. Sarah told me. My mom's smile faltered. My dad crossed his arms. I could feel the temperature in the room drop. But I didn't care anymore. I pulled out the 2 copies of my bank statement. I placed one on the kitchen counter in front of my mom. I handed the other to my dad. They both looked at the paper. My mom frowned. My dad squinted. Then my mom said, "What is this?" I said, "Read the bottom line." She looked. Her eyes widened. She looked again. My dad was already scanning the deposits. His face went from confused to shocked to something I had never seen before, genuine disbelief. My mom whispered, $51,000? $51,840, I said. Earned in 147 days. Freelancing. No help. No loans. No safety net. Just me, my laptop, and clients who actually value my work. My dad sat down on the couch. He didn't speak for a full 30 seconds. Then he said, "This can't be right. These numbers, some of these are huge. 8,000, 12,000. Who paid you that?" I said, "Businesses. Real businesses with real money. The kind of clients you get when you stop treating your work like a hobby and start treating it like a career." My mom was still staring at the statement. Her hands were shaking a little. She said, "Why didn't you tell us you were doing this well?" I looked her in the eyes. "Because you told me I would never earn $50,000. You said I didn't have discipline. You said I was unrealistic. You laughed at me in this very kitchen. So I decided to stop talking and start documenting. Every invoice, every deposit, every single dollar. And now here it is. The proof you said you needed to believe. My dad stood up. He walked to the window. His back was to me. When he spoke, his voice was different, quieter, almost cracked. I didn't think you had it in you. I'm sorry. Those 3 words, I'm sorry, should have felt like victory. But they didn't. They felt hollow. Because I realized I hadn't done this for his apology. I had done it for myself. My mom started crying. Not happy tears. Guilty tears. She said, "We were just trying to protect you. We didn't want you to fail." I said, "I know. But protecting me doesn't mean belittling me. And failing would have been fine too. At least I would have tried. You never even let me try in your minds." She reached for my hand. I let her hold it for a moment. Then I gently pulled away. Not in anger. In peace. I said, "I'm not here to make you feel bad. I'm here to show you who I actually am. Not the version you invented, because it was easier to doubt me than to believe in me. The real version." I picked up my copy of the bank statement and folded it carefully. Then I said something I had been holding inside for 147 days. "You told me I'd never earn $50,000. I proved you wrong. But more importantly, I proved myself right. And that's the only opinion that matters now." My dad turned around. His eyes were red. He said, "What do you want from us?" I said, "Nothing. That's the point. I don't need anything from you anymore. Not money, not approval, not permission. I just wanted you to see the truth. What you do with it is up to you." Subscribe for more stories where the truth comes out. Next week, a sister who stole $500,000. What happened in court will shock you. And tell me in the comments, would you have walked away or fought to prove your worth? I want to know your story. I left their house that afternoon and drove home with the windows down. It was a warm day in May. The sun was out. The rain from February felt like a different lifetime. I stopped at a coffee shop, the one I used to avoid because I couldn't afford a $5 latte. I ordered a large vanilla latte and a slice of cake. I sat by the window and watched people walk by. None of them knew what I had just done. None of them knew that a 26-year-old designer had just faced her parents and walked away without begging for their love. That night, I updated my spreadsheet one last time. I added a note at the top. It said, "Next goal, $100,000 in 1 year. Starting tomorrow." And I did start tomorrow. By the end of that year, I had earned $112,000. I moved into a better apartment. I hired an assistant. I stopped eating ramen. But none of that mattered as much as the 147 days in between, the days when no one believed in me except myself and my bank statement. Here's what I learned. The people who love you can also be the people who limit you. Not because they want to hurt you, but because your growth terrifies them. It forces them to look at their own small lives and wonder if they could have been bigger. That is not your problem to solve. Your only job is to keep building. Keep documenting. Keep proving, not to them, but to yourself, that you are capable of more than anyone ever gave you credit for. So if you are sitting in a room right now, feeling unseen, feeling doubted, feeling like everyone expects you to fail, open a spreadsheet, or a notebook, or a voice memo on your phone. Start tracking. Start counting. Let the evidence speak for itself. And when the day comes that you have all the proof you need, you won't even need to say a word. The numbers will say it for you. My name is Megan. I'm 26 years old, and 147 days after my parents said I'd never earn $50,000, my bank statement proved them wrong. But more importantly, it proved me right.